Bengals NFL draft recap and OTAs coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmanzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time?
Yeah, shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. He is Zim Hude. I am Ace Boogie. Zim, the Bengals just went through the NFL draft weekend. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good, man. I feel really good. I'm excited about everything that we got coming up. Excited for expansion with the Cincinnati shows. Excited about the draft picks. I'm excited to just get into it, man. I feel like, we did have that one recap show, I guess.
We did
after the Daxon Hill, but it feels like, I don't know, maybe I had a long weekend or something. It feels like it's been a little while for us.
It has, but coming up on today's show, we are taking a deep dive into last weekend's draft results, which picks have us excited for 2022. And then the Bengals have also started offseason workouts today. So we'll tell you who's there, who isn't there, and who is on the mend. And we're proud to have another duo added to the Cincinnati team. Our partners, Jake and Mon of the Bengals Post podcast, will swing by for more on the draft. So let's get to it.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
All right, Zim. Bengals offseason workouts started today. Jessie Bates wasn't in attendance, but what does the kickoff of offseason workouts mean for you?
For me, I mean, it in years past, when Joe wasn't at the helm, we had to, see what guys would be there. See, you got all those different things going on. I just think like with Joe as being our leader, everybody's there. Everybody looks ready. There's some guys that look good. I was told from someone that was there that they said that, man, Hayden Hurst looked good early on. Also, Wyatt Hubert, like they were like, bro, he's way bigger than what I thought he was. So there's a lot of different highlights. I mean, shoot, I saw who was that? Jamar Chase was like the Bengals media team has done a really good job of showing some good photos and stuff. So it's something to get us hyped. But the NFL is just so crazy in that aspect that they just in the middle of the NBA playoffs, like no matter what, the NFL is still king. We're still paying attention to all these all-season moves and stuff. But I feel like with Joe at the helm, I'm not worried about like who's there, who's not, all that stuff like that. We're good to go.
No, that's facts. I think one of the big guys that I noticed was Lael Collins. Thanks to the Bengals media team, we were able to see them and see him in action. And it just really puts in perspective how fast this offseason went, right? It seemed like just a month ago, we were just leaving the Super Bowl in LA. And next thing we know, it's free agency. Next thing we know, it's the draft. And next thing we know, guys are walking through that door. I think I was listening to a podcast earlier. Duke Tobin said he was going down for a sauna or something like that, and ended up seeing a bunch of players down there like, whoa, the players are back.
Duke, you dirty dog. Duke was in there in the sauna sweating it out, getting ready. Let me find out my man Duke been putting in work. He's just like, let me sweat
Duke
out
put in that work, and he was like, you know what? It's time to jump in the sauna because I've been putting that heat on the rest of the AFC North.
Sweat it out, Duke. Call up Gronk for us, though. If you really want to get in the sauna, I'm going to tell you, you get in the sauna, get out, hop into the pool is one of the greatest. All right, that's a whole different subject. I'm sorry.
No,
but
facts,
Duke, you did your thing. I appreciate you, Duke.
Duke, we got to do an interview from a sauna. Like, it just has to happen now. Like, we have to do the interview from the sauna. If we do have the pleasure of having you on the show, it will be live from a sauna. But Jessie Bates wasn't there. That was the big news. Obviously, it's only voluntary workout, so this isn't really out of the norm, especially when players and teams are kind of going through contract negotiations. Is this a big deal, or is it just something like, I think it's just regular, right? I think it's just normal. Like, a lot of people are making, I think it's much ado about nothing. I think a lot of people are reading into this too much. Until we have actual practices and stuff like that, or OTAs and stuff like that, then I think there's a cause for concern. But I think this is just a lot of clickbait kind of stuff and just people trying to get views on articles. What about you?
I'm in the same boat. I mean, the Bates thing, I just think it's kind of, I want to compare it to something else. Let's just talk about like right now. Your Jessie Bates potentially about to sign this franchise tag going into the season, which carries a lot of risks. You go into this and you get hurt or anything like that, God forbid, then now you hit the open market and you don't get maximize your value. So you need to take away all risks possible. Zach Taylor came to the podium and said he's not big. It's not a big deal if someone isn't there because it is voluntary workouts. So the one to be looking for is the involuntary workouts that are coming up in not too long from now. So.
Right. So another thing is Logan Wilson is not working out after his shoulder surgery. He kind of also talked about the refs. What are your thoughts on Logan Wilson just making sure that he rehabs from that shoulder surgery?
I thought it was really dope, his perspective on it, on his answer. He just said, hey, put yourselves in the ref shoes. This is the biggest play of the game. Did you get a chance to check out his presser and see what he said?
Yeah, I heard what he said, which I think.
What did you think about that? He could have said a lot of stuff.
Typically, that's how it either goes. It either goes that the people blame it on the refs and they go all the way to the left, or they just say, it's a hard job for them because refs get all kind of stuff, outside of just that. So that guy could have gotten death threats and all kind of stuff. So you never want to continue to pile on or stir up stuff. So I think Logan was just saying, obviously it's hard to make a call like that on the split decision. So I think he was just kind of empathizing with that ref, but I think everybody else felt like that shouldn't have been a flag.
Right. I mean, we've exhausted. I mean, as a Bengal fan, you probably exhausted that a million times, and you talk to a million people that tried to tell you about all these other calls that meant the,
And we don't care about calls. That's what we kind of built this brand off of. Like that doesn't. It is what it is.
I respected the answer that he gave. I just thought that he could have said, man, I didn't agree with the call, but whatever. But I think for him to have empathy for a ref in that situation is a perspective I probably hadn't thought of. I think most of the time we look at it and just say, hey, just call it the same way the whole game. And I think from his perspective, he was like, well, I mean, and I don't agree with it, but I thought it was interesting that he had a comment to just say, hey, they have a really hard job and da-da-da. It's another reason why when we talk about contracts coming up, we're going to be talking about T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, and Logan Wilson. Those are the three main. That is a big part of your core because the other really, really big core part, DJ Reader and Hendrickson, are already under contract for a couple of years. So so Logan Wilson's a guy.
So we talked about empathy. Logan Wilson showed empathy to the refs. Ryan Tannehill had some comments on losing in the playoffs, said that he needed therapy to cope with his loss. Do you have empathy for Ryan Tannehill?
I've really matured over the years messing around with you, Ace, because the old me, the Twitter spaces them and anybody going through anything, like where you feel like you don't have anybody to talk to or anything like that, I urge you to please make sure you strengthen your support group, talk to people, whether it be a Bengals friend. That's why we're doing this Cincinnati thing. It's like, start talking to other people that have like minds of you, have conversations with people. And that's another hobby pickup in itself outside of, like I know my fans, they used to always be like, man, why you always watching the Bengals? I'm like, man, it's a cool community. Like we all hang out at games and it's really dope, so mental health is very, very important. I do want to stress that.
That's facts.
The Ryan Tannehill situation, I think a lot of those fans that I can't speak for Ryan Tannehill. I think they were really confident coming into the game. So it's different, I think it hits really, really hard. Like, if the Bengals would have lost that game, sure, I think we would have been hurt. But it's different to think like how I think that they were coming into that game is that they were the number one seed. They're supposed to win the game. I don't care what nobody tells me now, but they were supposed to win the game. Nobody gave us a shot. Said Derrick Henry was going to run all over us. And then to lose in that fashion, I imagine it would take a toll on you. Like that's something that I don't think that Ryan Tannehill is the worst quarterback in the world. I didn't think that Ryan Tannehill would play that bad, but I also think that our defense is really freaking good too.
And I think that probably has something to do with it too, right? Like not only like when you hear this on the surface level, it's playoff loss, right? But you have to remember he threw 4 interceptions in that game. So you probably start to doubt yourself. You probably have some things that you wanted to take back. So I can understand that for sure. So next, let's talk about the fact that the Bengals had this draft class, and I want to get your overall impressions of the draft class. I'll start with mine. For me, I thought that one thing that they tried to do was be, and I feel like you're going to hear this on every podcast. Everybody's going to say the same thing in every interview is versatility, right? But I think that that's true, right? Versatility, and I also want to say athleticism, right? The guys that they got on from this draft really were burners, really are guys that can play a multitude of positions. And that's really not something that the Bengals have kind of strayed away from the past. They've always liked the versatility, but I think they had an emphasis of athleticism in this draft. But I still felt like there were some, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, and I'll get into it a little bit more later, some spots where I felt like I kind of left the draft like, I thought that they would, add a position here or there. And but overall, I feel like it was a solid draft. But there were some questions that I had making me kind of think that maybe there's more to free agency. But Zen, what were your thoughts?
I mean, for me, I think you go to free agency and you take care of all of your needs. And I think the offensive line was, for the most part, was solidified, right? You had the open gap at left guard. It was no secret. I was thinking Linderbaum all the way through. The backside of drafting, on the backside of the draft, is all these guys that you really, really want. You're going to watch them get taken right in your face over and over again. And I felt like the Ravens did that all weekend. And Linderbaum was like the one guy that I was saying, Linderbaum, I knew Zion Johnson would go because he's multiple. So teams value that. So when he was gone, I just was like, I really don't even care if they go to offensive line. I want them to pivot back out, go back and address need again with free agency, whether that's Spain, Darrell Williams, Riley Reeve, any of these guys that are still out there as a potential swing guard, swing tackle, anything like that, just to back up some of these guys, and then just pretty much just concede like, hey, look, Jackson Carman, we're gonna let you battle with one of these, one of the vets or something like that. But then when it came back with Wilson, I know that the fan base is probably high on him once you see his highlights and things like that. But I just always been on record as saying I just do not trust this team with drafting offensive linemen, and I definitely don't trust them in the fourth. And when I look back at this draft, I think a lot of guys, including like me and you were talking about this earlier, in the fourth round where Calvin Austin III was right there. And I'm not saying it has to be Calvin Austin III, just the potential sneaky need of wide receiver, the sneaky need of return ability, all of these different things was right there in your face in a couple different instances in this draft. Even in the third round, I love the kid Carter. I kind of think just because of the grade and his inability to finish tackles sometimes, I think that he would have maybe been there possibly in the fourth, or maybe they make a play in the fourth to go get him, and then you go get the tight end. So you left the draft with no tight end and you left the draft with no wide receiver. That's not a big problem because, like you said, you did solidify a lot of different things. The secondary, you lost Hargraves, you lost Darius Phillips, you lost Trey Waynes, and you lost Ricardo Allen. So you had to go and fill that in, even if it has any long-term effects on Jessie Bates, regardless. You had to fill the room up and get that straight, and I thought they did a masterful job at that. Like every single thing about it, like they'll be able to go against any defense. So I don't mind that part. And then
go ahead.
And I was gonna say the edge, Gunther at the end. I thought that was a great pick at the end as well too. Overall, for me, I give the draft a B-. What were you going to ask me?
Oh, I was gonna say, speaking of the rookies did get assigned their jersey numbers today for that class. So obviously, you got Dax Hill with number 23. Cam Taylor-Britt did not go with the number 5, went with the number 29. Zach Carter, the 3-tech, 5-tech edge, whatever you want to refer to him as, goes with number 95. Volson ends up with Quentin Spain's old number, so that's interesting. And then Tyson Anderson, the safety that they took that was extremely athletic from Toledo, I believe, number 26. And then Gunter, your man that you were just talking about, gets the old Michael Jordan or Michael Johnson number 93, because Michael Johnson had two different numbers, but he's going to get that number with that. What did this say to you? Because clearly 67 is Quentin Spain's number, and I think you had something interesting to say about Kappa as well with his choice.
I mean, the writings on the wall, I think Volson, you said this, I think, before. I said, man, if I don't get or somebody else might have told me this. I don't know who told me this, but if you didn't, I kept on saying, well, if you don't get Carmen or Zion, just forget offensive line altogether. And people were like, well, go get Zach Tom, go get, Salyer, go get all these dudes or whatever. And I was like, you trust that dude to battle it out with Carmen? And I just think Volson he represents that. And so when you do that, think about the depth that's behind them right now. Outside of maybe Trey Hill, like the depth is solidified and everything is there. There is like no spots for anybody. Like who could come on? Like, so Spain to me is out unless Volson just comes in there and they just that wouldn't even happen. That wouldn't even happen. So everything is everything's good. Oh, you asked me about Kappa. The Kappa, 65, the 65 Kappa played with that for the Buccaneers. I just thought it was interesting. He had an opportunity to go get 65, and he went and got 66. It had nothing to do with the rookie jersey numbers, but there's one guy that we know that wears 65. His name is Larry Ogunjobi. And the staff, if you pay attention to him, even when they talked about Zach Carter, they said, hey, this isn't an Ogunjobi replacement. Those are too big of shoes to fill. They've talked about Ogunjobi a couple different times. And they kept on saying, that Ogunjobi, like almost like the doors just crept open just a little bit. So that's just
speaking of doors opening. If you guys are watching right now, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We have another podcast joining the Cincinnati Network, and we would like to welcome in the Bengals Pulse with my man Jake and mine. What's going on, fellas?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. I think we're all feeling very good, especially after this draft. But for those who aren't aware, we kind of posted you guys' first show on Friday on the channel. So for those that are following or listening, please be sure to tune into that content, hit that subscribe button, follow them on Twitter. But let people who haven't seen that show that may be watching tonight.
Real quick. On that first show, I just want people to know, if y'all go back and watch the last show, these guys hit on a bunch of different things right before the draft. So if you're questioning any of their knowledge or any ability or anything like that, you could go play that show and then go watch and then you'll be like, oh, these dudes are locked in 100%. I just want to start you off like that. That's it.
Facts. But for the people that aren't familiar with you guys, just give a little bit of a background of yourselves.
Well, first of all, guys, we want to thank you guys for bringing us onto the Cincinnati family and network. We're excited to be a part of it. We have both been fan of you guys for a long time. You guys do a great job. But we are very excited. As you said, we had our first episode last week, and we had, I think, between 600 and 700 viewers. I mean, that is awesome. We plan on this thing evolving into something big, and we're just going to take off. We're going to bring you great content every Wednesday night. Again, we're just really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I feel like a celebrity being on your show, man. My kids think I'm cool again. No, I really appreciate it. You guys are great, and this is going to be a lot of fun. We love the Bengals, and I can't stop talking about them, and it's an honor to be on the program. Thank you.
All right, guys. So we're going to go in a roundtable format here, and I'm going to start with Jake, and everybody else is going to answer the same question. What was your favorite pick of the Bengals 2022 draft class?
Well, I hate to be the cliche one, but I'm going to go with Daxton Hill. Mon and I talked about this last week on the Bengals Pulse, and I had said I'm like Zim. I was a big Team Linderbaum guy. I felt like if he was there at 31, we had to run up to the podium and get him. I just feel like he fit what we needed. We had talked about it a little bit on the pod. Being able to move Karras over to guard and fit Linderbaum right in at center. It didn't work out that way. But what I also said on the pod was if Linderbaum is not there, it's got to be a safety. and I was very high on Daxton Hill. To me, he is the best safety in this draft. I know Kyle Hamilton, he's got the name and everybody falls in love with the name. But Daxton Hill, if you look at the numbers and the production of what he did in college, if you look at his athleticism and his versatility, this guy can play nickel. He can play free safety. He can come down in the box. He can blitz. He's a great blitzer. He runs a 4.38. He is much more athletic than Kyle Hamilton. I'm going to be honest with you. I was surprised he was there at 31. He was number 20 on the big board. Kuiper loves this guy. He said it was the steal of the first round, and I'm going to agree with him. I think the Bengals got the steal of the first round. I cannot believe that Daxton Hill was sitting there, and I'm telling you guys, I have family that are big Penn State fans. I've watched this guy play. This guy is a dude. He is a dude. He plays in a tough conference with a bunch of great receivers. Ohio State just had 3 guys go who are all dudes, and this guy hung with all of them. Again, like I talked about, his versatility, his speed, and not only that, but he kind of fits what the Bengals like. You know, they like leadership. They like guys that have played in big games. They like guys that are captains. This guy he just fits the need. And to me, Baltimore is going to regret not taking him over Kyle Hamilton. He fell into our lap at 31. He is my favorite pick, and I'm excited to have him.
It's crazy you said that because I think Ace has probably told me. I think you told me that off air that you thought that the Ravens probably were more suited for Dax.
With them having his defensive coordinator, I would think that unless the plan is to play Marcus Williams. But Zim, I'm going to swing it to you and then mine. What was your favorite pick of the 2022 Bengals draft?
I'm gonna go CTB. I think Cam Taylor-Britt. For me, I just think that the type of I'm always looking for swag. I'm looking for that confidence. I'm looking for all these different things, and then you combine that with the athleticism profile that Cam Taylor-Britt has. You talk about him on the outside as a guy that's going to push Eli. I think the camp battles, like even him at the press conference and everything, just talking about like how he can't wait to go up against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, like guys that really want smoke and aren't going to shy away from that in these big moment games, because this team is built for big moment games. Joe Burrow is going to make sure that you're in big division games and you're in big playoff games every year. And you need guys that carry themselves that way, even if it's quiet. But this one is a little bit more outspoken. I think personality-wise, he's always going to shine a little bit more, or he's going to have more sound clips or more sound bites that fans gravitate to. But just to play on the field, just him being a former quarterback, him understanding the quarterback position, he could throw a football 85 yards. So if you got a trick play up your sleeve somewhere down the season or something, you can maybe throw him in there. There's so many different things that you could do with this guy. And just like everybody else, he's super multiple in what he can offer you. But I think on the outside, we haven't seen the best of him because he's evolving into that spot right now. And I think he's exactly what you need in our division. I think he's exactly what you need in the NFL. And he's around a great secondary that's going to make him better and coach him up in itself, too. Playing around those guys is going to make him a lot better, too. So I really love that pick.
Yeah, me too. Definitely saw a little film of him versus Ohio State. They didn't target him in that cut up that I watched at all, and definitely has some experience playing zone, which Eli played mostly last year. But I'm gonna swing it to mine. Mine, what was your favorite pick for the Bengals 2022 draft class?
Jake's probably gonna laugh at this, but I'm gonna go with Zachary Carter. When we first drafted him, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little wasn't too excited. I was wanting Perion Winfrey. Then I started thinking
we were in the
it.
Group chat. We were.
I was a little bummed out about that. But then, I started thinking about it. Sometimes, I listen to the pundits. They're saying this and that. He's a tweener. Sometimes we just overthink and overanalyze. And, the answer is just right in front of us. Look at his college stats. 25 career starts, 17 and a half sacks, 29 tackles for losses, 2 forced fumbles, 8 pass defense. Hey, you don't get that by accident at the University of Florida. I mean, you're a certified football player. This guy played in the SEC. He produced, and The Bengals have a long history of getting these guys that come in rotational. Wallace Gilberry, Jonathan Fanene, Frosty Rucker played 12 years in the league. These guys came in, give you 4, 5, 6 sacks a year. And I think Carter is going to be somebody like that. I think he's going to be a solid player, and he's my favorite pick in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I would have to agree as well. Carter, I think, is a guy that definitely is going to come in and do some things at 3 tech and 5 tech. For me, I guess I will go with the guy that was a 7th round pick, right? I feel like the Bengals needed an edge. I feel like they needed to add someone to that room. Had to get some athleticism, especially after we saw what Osai brought to the table and flashed. And Hendrickson, I think, towards the end of the year, we kind of saw that was lacking a little bit, especially once he got banged up. So I actually like that one because it gets someone in that has the athletic profile that we kind of really haven't seen from that position, right? So I think that guy, even though he's just a 7th rounder, I'm very interested in looking at that battle if he can push a Wyatt Hubert or, some of those guys at the end of the edge room off of the roster and just see what he can do. So I was excited to see that at the end of the draft. But shifting gears, let's turn the flip side of it. Let's flip the pancake. There were some misses that some people kind of feel happened a little bit in this draft. Me personally, I'm going to say I thought that the Bengals would take a wide receiver or a tight end. Like I really thought that. Like I'm not saying that I expected them to take one early on, but I expected them to take a tight end simply because I love Hayden Hurst. I might even call myself the president of the Hayden Hurst fan club because I remember when we missed out on, I believe it was Conklin, I was like, Hayden Hurst is there. What is he doing there? Let's just go and get Hayden Hurst, right? But the fact that you don't really have anyone after Hayden Hurst is what concerns me. And I felt like this was an opportunity for the Bengals to try and do that. They didn't do that. And then they also didn't take a wide receiver. I think that those were 2 spots that I wasn't really happy with them. But were there any players or positions that you guys didn't like that they missed on the most? And I'll start with Zim. I'll start with Zim on this one.
But I want to ask everybody a question in regards to that. Don't y'all feel like, regardless of whatever you say right now, right? Is this a product? Well, or maybe I should wait till what you say. But I will say, I think Volson, where he played at, is a big red flag to me as far as like, I couldn't even grade you right now. I haven't seen you against anybody that I'm going to see remotely close in the NFL. Any of his highlights, he's beating up guys that are like, like I'm 190. Like he's knocking guys like me around, like coming up like that. I watched the game. He was killing the dude. The dude was like, I looked at the guy up. I actually Googled guys like 210 pounds. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right. I think that's why I'll have hesitancy, like, or that's what opens up the door for me to be like, in the 3rd, I thought they should have went tight end. Jeremy Rucker was right there. In the 4th, I thought they should have went wide receiver, and I would have just said the hell with offensive line. But then what happened? And now I don't know. Now I'm not in a war room. Bengals don't know this, and you don't have the foresight to know this. Zach Tom, Sawyer, all these guys
Kennard,
that we do like, Kennard, guys that we do like, then now fall 5, 6, rounds, and then you're like, damn, like maybe I did go a little bit out of order, and I hate to judge that in hindsight, but that's the only thing that I would say. I'm not going to look back and say, man, I wish we would have had this guy, me personally. I just question that pick because if this guy is not that, I feel like that's if he's just depth and he doesn't compete for left guard, it's a wasted pick for me. To me.
Mon, what were your thoughts on like the misses from the Bengals draft or your personal position or pick that may have been a miss?
You touched on it a little bit. Wide receiver, I really thought they were going to draft at least once. One, I really wanted Calvin Austin. Unfortunately, he went to a team that I can't stand. Zim, what you said about the tackle from North Dakota State, when they drafted him, I subscribed to a lot of publications and I couldn't find any information on him. I was struggling and I was shaking my head. I'm like, I just don't know about that. But another thing, I wanted the kid from Tennessee, the tight end from Coastal Carolina, likely ended up going to the Ravens. I was hoping they would get at least one tight end or wide receiver. I think it's a miss. Like I mentioned on last week's pod, we have 3 awesome wide receivers, best in the league, but the depth behind there scares me a little bit. And I hope they address it in free agency. I hope they're looking at it.
They could have had your boy. They could have had your boy Winfrey. We were texting. So guys that are listeners, we were texting the whole time the draft is going on. We're going
Travis Jones. He wanted Travis
right.
Oh, Mon wanted him so bad. Mon was screaming. I had to listen to Mon for 2 hours.
Whoever Terrence Wiley is, that's exactly what I was thinking. There you go.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and get Jake's pick on his misses at a position or a player. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, obviously, the easy thing to say is receiver, right? Because we had all talked about that before. I mean, this Bengals room, this receiver room is a little scary. I agree. I think we have the best 3 receivers on the field of any team in the NFL. But if one of those guys gets dinged up, it's quite a drop off. And how crazy is this, guys? In the history of the Cincinnati Bengals, we have never not drafted an offensive skill position until this weekend, right? Wow. So no running back, no tight end, no receiver. It's the first time in the history of the Cincinnati Bengals they did not draft an offensive skill position. And honestly, I think it was a bad time to choose not to do that. I mean, we are thin, and you know, we like Hayden Hurst. We all know what we're going to get from Sample. He's a great inline blocker. He, you know, that's his job on the team. But Hayden Hurst, after that, you know, you got some guys, you know, Wilcox. I like Wilcox. He's a great special teams guy. Mm-hmm. But there's not a lot of depth. Now, we did get an undrafted guy from Kentucky that I like. You know, I've watched him quite a bit, and I think he's a guy maybe that might be pushing for the roster to make the roster just because we're so thin at that. But I'm gonna go away from receiver real quick, and I'm gonna go to linebacker. And I talked about this a little bit last week on our show, but you know, Lou doesn't like to play a lot of linebackers. You know, most of the time we only have 2 guys on the field. You know, and you know, it is probably going to be the same way this year. Lou's going to throw 6 or 7 DBs out there. But to me, we're in nickel
70% of the time.
Yes. Oh, there's exactly, and it's going to stay like that. But you know, for me, we have Pratt, who gave us great snaps this year, made some big play. I mean, he played by far his best season. I think he's ascending. And then obviously we have Logan Wilson, who all 4 of us absolutely love. I mean, he's a generational linebacker. This guy can cover in space. He can run sideline to sideline. And, you know, his coverage on Cooper Kupp, that is unheard of for a linebacker to be able to play that kind of coverage. But after those 2 guys, there's a big drop off. And I love Akeem Davis-Gaither. I love Bochy played real well for us. He played some good snaps, and Mon's a big fan of Bailey, and I like those guys. But after those 2 guys, there is a drop off. And to me, I wanted to take a shot at Dean, and it was there. It was there. We had a chance to maybe trade up. We took Carter, and I'm okay with the Carter pick, but I was really hoping that we might try to trade up and get Nakobe Dean, because I think he fits that athleticism that we are looking for, right? Today's linebacker in the NFL, and matching him up with Logan Wilson, that would have looked nice to me. But I'm going to go with linebacker. Again, I was a little disappointed we didn't go grab one. I understand why we went DB with 3 of those 6 picks, but, you know, to me, linebacker is a very thin position right now for us.
Facts. So now we kind of were in a group chat and we talked about the Bengals picks. We also talked about some teams in the divisions picks. So who did you guys think within the AFC North, and we'll start this off with mine, had the best draft weekend?
The Baltimore Ravens killed it. I hate to say that, but they absolutely killed it. You know, they took my guy Jones, broke my heart. They took they drafted Likely also. I think they drafted every tight end in the draft. They had 6 picks in the 4th round. 6. That's unbelievable. They're loaded. They restocked that roster, and I think they definitely won the draft.
Yeah, for me, I pushed back a little bit on that because, you're right. The Ravens did pick some great players. I'm not disagreeing with that. But out of 11 picks, they didn't pick a receiver. Like you
That's
would
true.
think that,
That's true.
especially after trading Hollywood Brown and stuff like that, that they would have gotten him some weapons there. Linebackers, another story. I think edge has been an issue for them. They got Ojabo, right? But he's not a guy that I think fulfills that need this season. But I will say, I'll actually go with the Steelers here. And I'm going to say the Steelers because I think they drafted the way that Baltimore should have drafted when it comes to the wide receiver position. They end up getting Pickens. They stole Calvin Austin III from what people are saying from the Ravens because the Ravens apparently wanted to target Calvin Austin, even though if you wanted to target him, you had enough picks to trade up and do it, but that's neither here nor there. But I think
who said that they failed to get him after 6 picks in the 4th round, bro? They had more picks than we had in our whole entire draft. How do you fail to get your guy?
A lot of excuses.
That's impossible.
A lot of excuses coming out of Baltimore about why they did not take a receiver, but we know how they are. I
would encourage everyone that's watching this to go on Twitter, Mon and Coach Jake, tell them what your Twitter is. And the reason why I say this, if y'all get a chance, y'all gotta go on Twitter. And the Ravens fans own Twitter Spaces right now. If you want to hear like what the Ravens think of their Twitter. But Mon, what's your Twitter?
It's at Mon Abulhassan. I got a weird last name. It's ABOULHOSN. Mon, MAAN ABOULHOSN.
Okay. And then you guys can they also have one for the Bengals
in the post
as well.
Right.
So
that's what we need.
Yeah, so
Bengals Pulse _
that's
9,
at
I believe.
That's at Bengals _ Pulse 9, and then my Twitter's at Coach Jake Owens 9 OWENS.
I was going to ask you this, Ace, and I know I'm sorry I get a little off subject. My mind is just weird. Let me ask you this: when you talked about the Ravens just now, right? And me and Mon I'm on the same page. I feel like they had. If you were to ask me, they had the best draft in the whole entire NFL, but it's not the best draft for them. Has anybody watched anything like on like an NFL Network or anything like? All right, everybody's just praising the Ravens and not pointing out the fact that they didn't go to edge or wide receiver. And I mean, I know they did Ojabo, but that's not this year. You can't.
Linebacker is another one. Like a lot of people don't realize the weaknesses that the Ravens have. Patrick Queen right now, if we're just going off of this year, right now is like a bust, similar to Devin Bush in Pittsburgh. They actually replaced him. I always forget his name. Josh Bynes. Replaced him with Josh Bynes.
Played with us.
Patrick Queen was benched by Josh Bynes. They didn't take a linebacker.
Coach, you know what Nakobe Dean? I know you're high on him, right? You know what he reminds me of, though? He reminds me of like those SEC linebackers that just get ran down, the Reuben Fosters, the Patrick Queens of the world that hit the league and something doesn't click or something with him. Yeah. And it's no secret. Like why did all those teams let him fall down? I heard that he had a torn pec. And then he opted to not get the surgery or something too.
Yeah, it was something about he opted not to get the surgery. To me though, again, in today's NFL, you got to have linebackers that can run, right? And you got to have guys that can cover. His athleticism is unreal. I mean, if you watched the SEC championship, if you watched the national championship, I mean, that guy, he is running, he is all over the field playing against guys that are all big time players that are going to be playing in the league. To me, I understand what you're saying because he is a little undersized, but for the Bengals, for our defense, for what we do, we talked about we're a nickel 70% of the time. He's ideal for what we need. Right. And I'm going to jump on this Baltimore thing because to me, what drives me crazy is people get caught up on all these names. Right. And Baltimore went out. They got my guy Linderbaum. They did. That was a good pick for them. And I, you kind of felt like when they traded up, you're like, oh, here we go. We know that Bozeman already left. They needed a center. I told Mon, I'm like, oh my. And I'll tell you too, Mon thinks that Baltimore had the best draft because they took all the players he wanted.
But
the same with me. The same with me, bro.
But the thing is, guys,
But it wasn't good
guys,
for their team. I get it.
Right, and that's the thing is you still have to build a football team, and to me, Baltimore of anybody lost the draft. They traded away Lamar Jackson's best friend, right? His go-to guy. So not only do you piss off your franchise quarterback, but you don't replace the receiver that you trade away. I mean, their receiver room is arguably the worst in the NFL. And I don't even know if it's close. I don't know if it's close.
I think their team chemistry is going to be bad too. Team chemistry is going to be horrible.
They do not have a deep threat. Like a lot of people are letting them slide on a lot of stuff.
And to me, and we'll get into this further as we get closer to the season, but listen, we stomped them both games. I mean, we scored 82 points in 2 games against this football team. And to me, they did not close the gap at all. They didn't close the gap at all. I mean, we're talking, their offensive line is not very good. Their running back situation is a mess. Their receiver room is, again, arguably the worst in the NFL. So to me, they lost the draft because not only did you upset Lamar Jackson, they did. Not only did they upset Lamar Jackson,
hey,
they
you about to piss them off on Twitter though. But he's right though. He is right though. Their left, Mom, I will say. I'm sorry. I know we got to go to the next segment, but I'm gonna say their left guard is trash. Think about when we went got Lyle Collins, they went and got Morgan Moses.
That's true.
Like,
that's it. Yep.
Listen, like they got some holes that they're not going to tell you about. But I agree. If you didn't tell me who the team was, they killed it, destroyed it. If you would have did a mock draft before the draft and it showed Linderbaum, Kyle Hamilton, Ojabo, you would have been like, bro, you're cheating.
There's no way this is possible.
Right. Yeah, like that's not even possible. And they walked away with that. But your guys' point, it does nothing to close the gap.
It seems like the gap isn't closed. Do you guys feel like the Bengals, though, have done enough to keep them on top of the AFC? I feel like they have. I still think that they need to sign possibly a corner. Like if James Bradbury is out there, I threw a poll up today, sign James Bradbury or, potentially start Cam Taylor-Britt. I'd still add James Bradbury. I'd still add a potential lineman, and I would still add a receiver.
I saw that poll. I voted on your poll. Is the poll closed?
I think it's closed by now. As we're recording this now, I think
if they didn't draft a corner, sure. But I know how the Bengals operate. They're not giving that dude no $10 million, and they got all these secondary. Not happening. You know how you told me? Hey, let me tell y'all real quick. Ace told me that there is no possibility. I was telling him about wide receiver. And
tell them, let them know. Let's see what they say.
This is OBJ, right? I said the Bengals need a 4th wide receiver. I said, why not get OBJ? He's going to be ready by week 7, week 8. He couldn't want more than $3-4 million. He just played last year with the Rams for $4 million. He will be the 4th wide receiver. He said, man, he said a lot of stuff. But I just
number one. Go ahead.
But okay, so it's not possible, right? But if you're telling me that's not possible, James Bradbury, after drafting all of that, is no way possible. Like it's the amount of money.
You think he's still going to command $10 million if he gets cut for 12? Yeah.
Yep. Because of the age, what he can offer your team, it's just a bad situation. Unlike OBJ, who's 30 years old, he's not OBJ the before. He's fresh off a newborn child. Bless him and his family. Like he's probably got a different perspective. He now has a Super Bowl ring. He loves Joe Burrow. He wants to play with LSU boys. He has no problem doing that. No situation, including the Rams, would he be a number 2 or number 3 option. The Rams, if you were to go back,
to the Ravens. If he goes to those Ravens, he'll be
nobody's going to go to the Ravens. Nobody's going to go to the Ravens because nobody wants to. Like that's what I'm saying. Tell me a team he would even like that would even.
I just personally don't see OBJ saying I'm going to be a number 4. Like his whole issue.
I think he would come here.
Whole issue in Cleveland was that he wanted to be a part of the offense. Baker wasn't targeting him, and he still feels like in his head, which I don't agree with, that he's OBJ from like 5 years ago. He still thinks that the guy that was a cover of Madden and all of that. I don't know, like now maybe like if there's an injury or something like that, and it opens the path for him to come in later in the season.
Why wait for an injury?
Well, let's throw this out here too, because we know the Bengals, they like to run 3-by-1. They like to run empty. I mean, I could see where he would fit in. And again, no matter who the Bengals bring in, they're going to have to figure out a way to get the ball to everybody, right? Because I mean, talent wise, that starting group is loaded. But I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to tell you, absolutely, the Bengals have done enough. This team is returning their entire Super Bowl roster. Not only that, but the guys that we lost, we upgraded at those positions. We have arguably could have a top 10 offensive line. I know that sounds like I'm a homer, but it's true. I mean, you're talking about one of the best tackles in the NFL. Now you mesh them in with some guys that have Super Bowl rings, right? Guys that we look for, captains of football team. That offensive line to me is better than we have had in a very long time. And then we're thin at DB. We go out, we get 3 guys that are versatile, can play different positions. Oh, and by the way, they're fast, right? All 3 guys, 4.3 40s. These guys can run. They're athletic. They're long, and they're fast, and they're versatile. To me, it is the Bengals and everyone else in that division. There's a large gap. And as far as the NFL goes, in the AFC, it's the Bengals and Bills. And I'll be honest with you. I know that sounds like a homer, but those 2 teams, and I talked about this on our pod, there's a large gap after those 2 football teams.
I'm going to throw another team in there, though. Chargers, do not discount them. And I don't care about the splash names. I'm just going off of Justin Herbert, better offensive line. And then the other name I'm going to give you is the Broncos, for the sense of their defense showed us that they are super serious last year. They added to the defense. And then, although I don't think Russell Wilson at this point in his career is better than Joe Burrow, you put Russell Wilson in a loser die situation, that's scary.
Right. Mon, let's get your pick in.
I definitely think we're much better off. I love the depth in the secondary. Jake hit on it perfectly. We didn't have the numbers back there. We needed to draft those defensive backs. It was a must. I want to touch on something quickly. I really think our running back from last year from Michigan, Evans, is going to play a big part. He's going to play a big part in the passing game this year. I could see him getting 40, 50 catches. The guy has unbelievable hands. And, we didn't address wide receiver, tight end. I could see him being a lot more active in our offense.
That's a good point.
Definitely. And that's why we brought these guys on to the Cincinnati Network, because these guys know their stuff. So be sure to check on the Bengals Pulse. Guys, let these guys know where they can find your stuff, Jake and Mon.
Well, like I said, our right now our Twitter page for the Bengal Pulse is at Bengals_Pulse9. My Twitter, my personal one, is at Coach Jake Owens 9. Again, we're going to be on the Cincinnati Network every Wednesday night. Check us out. Thank you for everyone who did and all of the awesome comments. Mon and I are we're very excited to be a part of your guys' network and your family. We've both been Bengal fans for over 40 years, so we have a lot of great content coming. And we're just excited to be a part of it. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. You guys are the best.
Yes, sir. So you guys stay tuned. We have some more coming up. But first, we'll get into our sponsor of the podcast, the Midwest Best Barbecue.
Wings, and we got you with them Uno Wings. Uno Wings, they tell me that the Uno Wings will make you do the grenade. The Uno Wings will make you do the grenade. Uno Wings. Uno Wings, come and get them Uno Wings. Uno Wings, who they gonna beat them Uno Wings. Uno Wings, and we got you with them Uno Wings. Uno Wings, they tell me that the Uno Wings will make you do the grenade. The Uno Wings will make you do the grenade.
Shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue, 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Stop by and get some Uno Wings, get you some sweet tea. But Zem,
did you see me dancing to that?
I did see you. I saw you
in the
cutting up.
background.
Saw you cutting up. You was
Hey,
getting
Tim.
spicy like some of those Uno wings for sure.
Hey Tim, that's a bop right there because I was getting busy to that Uno wing. I was singing that the other day though.
And what people don't know, Tim
so
is a
weird.
man of many talents. Not only can he make up Uno wings, not only can he make brisket, he can make beats. And that was
Right.
him on the hook. That Uno wing, that's Tim. So be
Yes,
sure to
sir.
stop in and say, Tim, I'm a fan of the wings, I'm a fan of the brisket, and I'm a fan of the song. But
If
make
you
sure
come
that
in there and
hit
do the gritty and sing the song and call me, I'll make sure I'll pay for your food. If you go into Midwest Barbecue and you sing the whole entire song and you do the gritty, then tell Tim to call me.
hit me or Zim
I'm
on Twitter.
I'm
We're
a
gonna
comp-
take care of you.
I'm gonna comp your meal. I got you.
Facts. But there's another reoccurring thing that keeps happening. Gronk keeps bringing up Joe Burrow. He keeps talking about how great Joe Burrow is. What are your thoughts about him talking about Joe Burrow again? Is it a possibility, or is it Gronk just saying that he's a fan?
I think Gronk just playing around out here, flirting, just trying to, you know how that stuff goes. But like I always tell you, until that John Hancock hits that ink hits the pen and that pen hits the paper, then anything can happen. I don't know. Tom Brady could have a bit of a fallout with something, or anything can happen. But all I know is that they asked Gronk again in the draft about Joe Burrow. And he's telling y'all he got swag. The Bengals did not draft a tight end. They brought in guys and all that other stuff like that. I the same way I was just telling you about OBJ, it's just different when our fans got to adjust to, I guess, the way that I always seen the Bengals in a way, is that I don't feel like, why would he want to come? Like, why would he not? Like, I really, truly feel like, I'm like, why would you not? Like, everybody that came here got numbers, like Ocho Cinco, all these dudes like that. And now these dudes fresh off a Super Bowl, I think his chances of getting to a Super Bowl are better with us than the Bucks. I do think the Bucks probably, the Bucks did. Yeah, that was a stretch. I do feel like they have an equal chance, if anything.
Facts.
But you know how this goes.
Yeah, so I think I don't think Gronk's coming to the Bengals, but I think there's always a chance, like you said, until the ink is put to the paper. There's that. But Zim, we got a special guest coming here on Thursday. So if you guys are watching right now, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review. That really helps other Bengals fans find our podcast, whether that's in the Apple Store, whether that's on Stitcher, whether that's on Spotify, however you listen to this podcast. Please help us grow. If you guys really support the Cincinnati brand and what we do here to keep things going to a whole nother level, which you guys did with the Orange is the New Black podcast to bring us here, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, send us those reviews, because we have Mike Hilton coming through. He tweeted earlier today. He said, it's time for me to do some podcasts. And my man Zim jumped right up in there and was like, hey, we have a podcast. It's called the Wincinnati Podcast. And you guys can look forward to on Thursday here at 7:30 p.m. He will be joining us live. So get your comments ready, get your popcorn ready, hit that like button, and stay tuned. But thank you guys for listening to the Wincinnati Podcast.
Cincinnati.
Yes.
Hello, world. We got a special show, as always. TJ Houshmandzadeh, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Time to be a Bengals
How do
fan.
you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time? Yeah. Shock the world.